Greetings, everybody. Great that you could join us. We'll just pause for another 30 seconds while we wait for various registrants to come on board. We'll be back and started momentarily. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. We're delighted you could join us for the annual iteration of the technology edition of the State of the American Traveller. This is a special quarterly edition that we undertake with our very good friends at Destination Analysts. We've been doing this for quite a number of years. In fact, our relationship and partnership with Destination Analysts extends back over 14 or 15 years. And I'll be delighted to be joined by David Reichbach. And David is a very good friend. He's Senior Director of Analytics, Research, and I think Data Security. David, where are you joining us from today?
Today I'm calling in from beautiful San Francisco. It is one of the few days of the year that we have sunshine. So yeah, it's a great day. Happy to be here.
Thank you, David. And we'll be passing over to David to present the latest research looking at technology and its impact on US travelers. We're also delighted to be joined by another very good friend and a colleague here at Miles. Danelle Amos is our media director. She's got over 13 years in media and communications, primarily in the digital space. And Danelle, where are you joining us from?
I am in Denver, Colorado. And like David, it's actually sunny here after lots and lots of rain.
Yes, and I can attest to that. I'm also in Denver, Colorado. And for those who don't know me, my name's Chris Adams. I look after Research Insights. And again, we're delighted to be joined by both David and Danelle. Now, just a reminder that we'll be sharing out 24 hours after the webinar an email with the links to the recording, to the slides, to a range of other resources that we'll be highlighting through the presentation today. Plus, you'll see that they're available on those websites. And you'll see in the email and on those websites, we've got a special research summary that we've put together. So you hopefully have noticed this in our previous quarterly edition, which is the Destinations edition. We'll be doing a special research summary of this technology edition, a 4-page highlights of some of the key research insights and what it all means. So without further ado, let's jump into the research, and then I'm going to pop back in with some resources, some trends to complement what David is presenting. Then Danelle will join us to talk about media trends, and then we'll have time throughout for questions and answers. And if you please use the Q&A function to share any questions, and or the chat feature to share additional comments or resources that could be of interest. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Chris. So welcome everyone to the State of the American Traveller Technology Edition. Again, my name is David Reichbach. I'm the Senior Director of Analytics and Data Security for Destination Analysts. Destination Analysts is very proud to partner with Miles Partnership to produce this amazing research for the industry. And we absolutely love being able to share this data and very important insights out with the industry today. The State of the American Traveller is the longest running tracking survey of American leisure traveler perception, motivation, and behaviors. We've been fielding this survey since 2006. We currently field it monthly. Every month, we talk to over 4,000 American leisure travelers about their perceptions, motivations, behaviors, travel patterns, what resources they're using, how they're feeling about money. And because we get to talk to so many travelers every month, we have a great confidence in the data that we get to share today. I'm going to start by talking about traveler sentiment and specifically about how American travelers are currently feeling about their finances. So let's jump right into the data. And again, I'm going to move through this rather quickly, but if there are questions, please put them in the Q&A box so that we can get to them. We asked American travelers this month, would you say that you are better off or worse off financially than you were a year ago? And currently, almost 30% of American travelers say that they are better off than they were 12 months ago. Another third, 35%, say that they're unchanged. So about 60%, 2/3 of American travelers are either the same or better off than they were 1 year ago, which is a pretty good financial state to be in. But if you've been following anything about inflation or recessionary concerns on the news, you will not be surprised that almost 60%, 58.8% of American travelers currently agree that they expect the United States will enter an economic recession in the next 6 months. Actually, most economists across the country, most economists that we trust and believe, also agree to this, but it will be a very light recession if we're not already in it. Recessionary concerns amongst American travelers have been rising in the last couple of months. It was at a low in February at 53%, but it's since been coming back up to where we saw it around October, November, December of last year. Due to that growth in the recessionary concerns, we're actually seeing some hesitancy about spending. 62% of American travelers currently say that right now they're being careful about their money because they're concerned about the upcoming recession. So any amount of communication that you can share with American travelers today on how far their dollars will take them, how much value they're getting for the money they're spending, that's that confidence that you can build in the American traveler in spending their dollars with you and your destinations is really going to go a long way. So let's jump in to how Americans are currently planning travel these days. We ask American travelers every month, and this is one of my favorite questions to dive in deep on because we get so much detail in the data about which travel planning resources they would be most receptive to learning about new destinations. And it's very particular that we're asking about resources that they would be most receptive, where they want to see messages from many of the destinations in the audience today. Top of this list, we're seeing websites found via search engine. So being able to find your website content online is of the utmost importance. And if you have any questions on how to get your website found via search engine or any kind of search engine optimization, please talk to the experts at Miles. No one does that work better. They are geniuses in the space. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. Following right after websites is Facebook content, direct email communication, online content, articles and blogs, and it goes on from there. I've actually taken this data and I've segmented by generation because I actually think looking at this, how travelers use these resources or which resources they most want to see your content on by generation actually makes a big difference. And I've color coded this on purpose because I think it tells an interesting story, right? If we looked at all American travelers, we saw that websites found via search engine was the top. And it is still the top for Gen X travelers and for baby boomer and older. But for millennial and younger travelers, it's number 3. It comes down, and what's pushing it down is social. Millennial and younger travelers are far more interested in seeing your content on Facebook, on Instagram. We even see TikTok jump up in their top 5 right before it gets to other online content. We see Facebook, and I've color coded that in the light blue, in Gen X and baby boomer lists as well, but as you can see, it's sort of further down the list the way you might anticipate. We still see Instagram and TikTok on Gen X's top list, but we don't see either of them in the boomer and older categories, which is interesting. And then email communication, we see the reverse trend where it is number 2 for the boomer and older group, number 3 for Gen X, and down at number 6 for the millennial and younger. So there's definitely some trends that we're going to see generationally. None of this should be surprising, but it's actually really important that we understand how these trends impact our marketing decisions. When we get past the data point on where American travelers are most receptive to your messaging, but which resources they actually use to plan, we ask it about offline resources and online resources separately. So currently, 36% of American travelers use at least one form of offline resource to plan their travel. This is down 4 percentage points from where it was last year, and top offline resources are currently the travel and lifestyle magazines printed, free printed destination guidebooks or pamphlets, and then television programming broadcast. 8% have the report travel agent use. That does not include any kind of online travel agent, because this is just for the offline resources. Let's actually switch to the online resources used specifically for travel planning. We see 33% are reporting using online content, articles, or blogs. Another 27% online travel agencies, the Expedia, Travelocity, etc. 25% mapping sites, Google Maps. 25% other online content, travel businesses and attraction websites. And then 23% review websites, the Yelp and TripAdvisor. So a lot more online resources being used than offline, but both are important. And if anybody tells you that print resources are dead, they are lying. There's absolutely a segment of the American traveling population that really prefers and loves print, and they spend a lot of money. So don't ditch your print, just understand where it needs to fit in the rest of your marketing platform. When we talk about social media used to plan travel, and it's important to talk about social all on its own because in many ways it is its own beast and it acts very differently and travelers use it very differently. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok are the top 4 in the space. It was not even a year ago that TikTok was still right around the bottom, but it has been growing so quickly. It is so important. I tell everyone I can talk to that if they aren't on TikTok, they will be being left behind. It is absolutely my favorite platform to personally to consume any kind of travel content because it absolutely knows that I'm a traveler and knows my travel preferences. So seeing TikTok growth in the space is really dramatic from the data perspective, but absolutely impactful in the industry. When we look at the social content use by generation, you shouldn't be too surprised with the order of things, but the magnitude is what I most want to get at. Because we still see the Instagram, Facebook, YouTube up at the top for all 3 generations. But when we compare the actual size of the bars for the millennial and younger group compared to the Gen X and even to the boomer, we see that the millennial and younger generation is so much more likely to actually use social content to plan. 63% of millennial and younger used at least one social channel, 43% of Gen X, compared to only a quarter, 23.8% of boomer and older used at least one social channel to actually plan in the last 12 months. Digital influencers are an interesting subset of social because digital influencers can put out content that is not on social, but it is the main sort of channel in which you will get their content. So there's overlap here, but it's technically asking a different question. So when we ask American travelers in the past 12 months, have you used the opinions of digital influencers to help plan any travel? We see 19.4% are currently saying yes. This is a little bit down from what we tested last year at 21%, but I honestly wouldn't say that that's a statistically significant drop. I'd say that's staying pretty flat. It is still growth from where we saw influencers in 2019 at 16%. So there's been some change there, but not too much. When we look at official DMO resources, the official destination website, visitor guide, both online and printed, all of these are important to the American traveling population. A third, so 33% of American travelers currently say that in the past 12 months, they use at least one DMO resource to plan their trips, with the highest being that destination website. And this is why both the team at Miles and our team at Destination Analysts are so passionate about testing and understanding the user experience when it comes to destination websites, how travelers are actually using their websites to plan. It's why we have entire swaths of research dedicated to just that one marketing asset, because it's so important to the travel planning experience. We asked 2 questions here: why travelers are using DMO websites and why they're not. So when we look into the positive side, why travelers say that they use destination marketing organization websites, 42% say the content's trustworthy. 39% say they offer the specific travel information I need. 33%, I located the website on a search engine. Again, that is a really important thing to have down and done well. 27%, good website design and usability, largely, I hope, due to the research work we do in that space. Habit, I think, is a really interesting one. When travelers say, well, I typically use DMO websites because I trust them, and they're more likely to use more. So the more destinations out there that have really, really amazing websites, the more that all of our amazing content will get out and in front of travelers. I think that's definitely a space where the industry can work really well together. If we look at the opposite side of that coin, why travelers are not using DMO websites, top of this list, I just didn't think to use them. So not knowing the resources there. Awareness is really, really big, and better sources of travel information are available. Websites contain too much advertising. All of these are less than 1 in 5, so less than 20%. So it's important that you understand them in context. These are not as important as the whys on the positive slide that I just showed, but it's really important to kind of understand how they play together.
And I think that highlights, doesn't it, David, the importance of doing research on your own DMO website in terms of a user and potentially even a conversion study, so you can understand, you know, are your users finding the information that they're seeking, and what's some of the feedback they might have about how to make your website even better.
Absolutely. That's one of the most important pieces of research that I recommend destination marketing organizations do today.
Yes, and so, you know, getting that balance between content and advertising, critically important. Just wanted to highlight a resource that we've been publishing for a number of years. We'll be updating it with the latest 2023 data. It's called the Hyper-Informed Traveler. We co-produce this with destination analysts, and it basically aggregates, summarizes, and provides critical insights around how people what media they're using in their travel planning process. And it's called the Hyper-Informed Traveler because it is such an incredibly complex, fragmented media landscape where you have to ensure your content's getting out across different channels and different content types, etc. And so we'll be sharing that updated edition in the coming few weeks.
Awesome.
Back to you.
Diving back into the data, we're going to talk about video use in travel planning as its own content type, not necessarily a different channel because it is available on many of the social channels we just talked about, but as a content type, we treat it a little bit differently, and travelers do, which is why we study it separately. So in general, we asked American travelers in the past 12 months, have you used online video, including visiting video sharing websites, YouTube, TikTok, etc., to plan any travel? Currently, a third, 37.8% said yes. And we've actually been asking this monthly. So compared to the last time series chart I showed you that was once per year measurement, we actually have this more granular. And I think it's really going to be a really interesting exercise to understand the seasonality of online video use. I think the fact that we're actually seeing the data kind of show us in waves when travelers are more likely than not, or more interested in not. Finding out what's driving that is actually going to be really important for video marketing going forward. But for the travelers who do say that they've used video to help plan their travel specifically, we asked about frequency. How often do you use online video to plan your travel? 17.6% of American travelers say that they always, so for every trip they take, or usually use videos or online video as one of the resources to help plan their trip. Another 1 in 5, 21% say sometimes. Only 40%, so 39, say that they never use video for travel planning. I think it's really important to understand this by generation as well, because the like, not surprising if we look at the different channels we were looking at previously on, you know, which social channels and how the social channels are distributed amongst generation, or even just overall travel planning resources, how that's distributed amongst generations. The channels that do have more interactive content or more video, you're going to see that be much higher in the younger generations. And it's going to be so much more of an important content type moving forward into the future. And yeah, I can't speak enough about how important that is. We tried to dive in a little bit deeper using this question with American travelers. How do you generally use online video for helping with your travels, right? How is the video actually used in terms of what it's going to do for you? 30% said it gives me a general sense of the destination I'm considering visiting. So for travelers who are largely unfamiliar with the destinations that they're going to visit, people who haven't been there before, seeing it in video format really helps them give a sense of the destination. Another quarter, 25%, said inspiration on where to travel. So looking at videos really high up in the travel planning process where they haven't quite decided where they're going, a video can help inspire that decision. Another 23% inspiration on what to do while traveling. So even if they've made the destination decision, getting that inspiration on what activities or attractions to have or to see is super, super important. And then even though it's fourth on the list, as a personal note, I definitely am influenced by travel videos on where to eat. I think food as a inspiration for tourism is one of the most, at least for me personally, impactful things that video can do. Because I know that I'm not alone, but my personal experience is if I see something that looks really good, I will absolutely travel for that. And I know that that's really, really important. When it comes to preferred video format, because there is a lot of discussion in our industry today on the sort of what they say is standard or widescreen format for video compared to the vertical format, we asked American travelers whether they had a preference, right? While watching online video, do you generally prefer watching widescreen or vertical format? 42% said that they preferred widescreen. Our understanding is that's largely due to the screens that they're using, right? If I'm looking at vertical video, but I'm exploring it on my connected smart TV, it's just the wrong screen format for that. So we know that because so much content is consumed, not just on our mobile device, but on all of our screens, there is going to be some preference for the standard. But I think the most important takeaway from this is actually the both at the bottom. 42% also say that they have no preference at all. And I think that is because the mix of video format types is important. I think actually seeing content both in widescreen and in vertical, or having a mix of different formats, I think is the right option here, because what screens we're using is changing. I mean, even as we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, Chris and I are going to talk about new things in virtual reality, and the screen size in virtual reality formats isn't even a question because everything around you is the screen. So there's lots of different things that we can talk about here, and I think this is just like tip of the iceberg in terms of the exploration on format types. Let's actually talk about video use in planning for their most recent trip, because we have a couple follow-up questions for American travelers. We said, before leaving your home on your most recent overnight trip, which of the following did you use to gather inspiration or information for your trip? Instagram Reels, TikTok, Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts, and short form video on other platforms really didn't show up. So the kind of top short form video providers are exactly who we think they are. But this is the percentage for used before, and we see 32.8% say that they used at least one of these before traveling. If we compare that to used during, so after leaving your home and arriving in the destination, we see that jump up. It's not a super dramatic jump, but I think it's actually really telling, even if these were exactly the same, that short form video content in that vertical format that we absolutely love to consume is just as likely to be used in market as it is to be used before. Whereas so many of our past studies when it comes to how DMO websites are used or how visitor guides are used, so much of that content is more likely to be consumed before leaving home than arriving in destination. But specifically with short form video content, you have this great dual use, and I think that opens a lot of doors for different types of content.
So this whole explosion of vertical and short format video, David, we had a close look at with the team there at Destination Analysts. So Destination Analysts, with our support, undertook this major study. It was specifically on TikTok, but really it provides great insights and takeaways for all the vertical video formats and platforms, including YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, etc. And just a couple of highlights I wanted to call out, David, from this study. And A free research summary is available, or you can purchase the whole report from Destination Analysts. But this number here really leapt out to me. So 48%. Now, this is travelers, US travelers who reported using TikTok, but it's clearly hugely influential for this subset of American travelers. Almost half say that they had actually taken a trip to a destination because of content they saw on the platform. So I don't think I've seen that sort of number across any other platform. And the next number also speaks specifically to many in the audience today, which is that DMOs are as trusted as other content creators. And I think we can see that on the next slide, David. So rather than just influencers or relying on them, you can see that destination brands actually provide a very appealing content creator source. So this whole area, of course, has really grown dramatically and beyond TikTok, which has, of course, got some controversy around its security, etc. But really understanding the appeal and impact of short format and vertical video. And we've put together a whole range of resources on this, which I'll flag later, and I'll put some in the chat. In fact, we ran a whole vertical vision webinar with you just a couple of weeks ago. So we'll be sharing those resources as well. So back to you in terms of the next area of technology use.
Thank you for saying that, Chris. The TikTok research is one of my favorites to dive in deep on. As Chris said, it is currently the only industry-wide piece of research that has been made available to date on how travelers are using not just TikTok, but any kind of vertical format video. It dives in very deep on the specific types of content, styles even. There's both qualitative and quantitative components to it. So much great learning. So thank you, Chris, for talking about it, because it's one of the best pieces of research today on this format.
Yeah, and we've put together some practical resources, including a blog that Emily DeLong, one of our experts here on short formatted vertical video, 5 practical tips about how to create content in an effective and not hugely time-consuming way. Okay, back to you, David.
Yeah, well, I can definitely second that recommendation for the audience. There is no team doing more in the space than the Miles team. So yeah, they're amazing and pushing the boundary. But let's jump into the next part of our data for today's presentation on technology use and interest. And we're going to dive in deep a number of these types of technology and different technologies used in travel planning we've been testing for years. And it's really interesting to see how some are moving up, some are moving down, and some are honestly not changing. There's a lot of really interesting findings here. So let's start with travel-related apps. These will be specific apps that you download for travel, not just kind of the average app that you use on the daily and also use while traveling. I just want to make sure that's clear. Currently, 27% of American travelers this year in 2023 said that they use travel-related apps in the past 12 months. This is down 10 percentage points from last year, which seems like a really far drop, and it is. But if we look at this in time series, we actually see that where we are is kind of in line with where we were pre-pandemic. 2018, 2019, right around the same statistically place. 2022 was one of those years where we were still largely not fully recovered in terms of travel. We were still kind of relearning how to be travelers. And I hate to say this, but we were still learning how to be nice to the other people on the airplane. And thankfully, our industry has gone so much further than the disasters last year. But we were so much more into our phones and into our own space. So although this is a dramatic drop, I actually want to make the claim that this is not as dramatic as it otherwise could be. I think this is more of a return to normal and probably not a bad sign. If we look at this by generation, we do see that the millennial and younger and Gen X generational segments are more likely than the boomer or older to say that they use travel-related apps. I think Not surprising, we've actually seen the generational divide on this in the past, but it's actually interesting to see that millennial and younger and Gen X are much closer in common on the use of travel-related apps than they are different. When we talk about specific travel-related apps being used, top of the list is OTA, online travel agency apps, Expedia, Hotels.com. Second to that is airline, so direct airline apps. Another 44% specific hotel apps, Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott. 38% weather apps specifically for travel use. Recommendation apps and last minute hotel deals, which is a separate kind of hotel app, are kind of the second tier at that 27-24%. And if we get down to where we've highlighted in orange, destination specific apps, 11.8%. 11.8% this year, which is half of where it was a handful of years ago in 2016. So the use of that app is now being measured as down, but also the prevalence of that app in the industry. Destinations who are really investing into a dedicated app, which is separate from just an online version of their website that can be accessed on mobile, is also down. So these two might go hand in hand in terms of kind of chicken or the egg, but really interesting to see in the measurement that it's dropping. Jumping into virtual reality, something that I am personally passionate about. Currently 17 point, I make myself laugh. Apologies, because I'm a big data and tech nerd, but you'll understand why in a minute. Currently 17.4% of American travelers say that they have access to a virtual reality headset basically at home, whether it's one of those mobile ones that you can carry with you, whether it's connected to a video game system. I am in that 17.4%. And I like to think of myself as an early adopter because I love virtual reality headsets and I think they do so many amazing things. But as you can see from the time series, this percentage has not grown in years or months. It's one of those moments where I'm no longer an early adopter if the technology is out there and the interest just isn't picking up. I'm just an adopter at this point. That's why I make myself laugh on this. But VR absolutely has a dedicated base. You'll notice that this isn't growing significantly, but it's also not dropping anytime soon. And it is much more likely to be used by the millennial and younger or Gen X segments. When we kind of dive out of current use, but of interest, like maybe American travelers aren't currently using, but they have interest in it, we actually see this, and this is measured over time in years. It hasn't been like, the highest level of interest was in 2017. We started measuring it in 2016 because that was the first time that it was really available for consumers. And we saw a growth in 2017. So those early adopters who were really interested in virtual reality experiences, we saw that come back down in 2018, and it's otherwise pretty level. Of that, somewhere between 40 and 50% of American travelers who have interest. And this is not dropping. It's a little bit down from last year, but it's not, like, statistically, this isn't on a downward spiral. So I can't predict that virtual reality is going away anytime soon.
And we saw just a couple of weeks ago, David, a big announcement that could lead to change over the next few years in this space. So Apple launched their Vision Pro, pretty pricey unit, $3,500, twice that of their major competitor. It sort of speaks to an area that they've described as spatial computing, and it leans into not just the sort of immersive experience, but the potential of slimming down the headset to make it more of a Google Glass type sort of set of spectacles, etc., that some even predict could become another primary way to interact with technology platforms and online resources, either in addition to or even in place of your smartphone. So certainly an area to watch. I think it's been overhyped and perhaps under-delivered to date, but with Apple entering this space, it's certainly something to still keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. I know a lot of the reportings on this new product that Apple is going to release soon are calling it like the first consumer widely available headset, and it's not. The technology has been around for a long time, but doing it well, as you said, it's been overhyped and under delivered previously. So Apple entering the space and doing it really well, I think, is going to make a huge impact in terms of the interest and generating interest among the major traveling population, but with the high price to entry. Honestly, we'll have to just see what content is available on it as a platform, as a new like universe of services. I think that's really gonna tell us where we're going from here.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's wrap up the last couple of areas. I'm just conscious of the time, David, so pass back to you. And I think we've got to have a quick look at augmented reality in the metaverse.
Yes. So augmented reality, close to virtual reality, obviously, but with reality behind it somewhere. Use of augmented reality, currently we're seeing 8.2% of American leisure travelers said that they use it in the last 12 months, significantly lower than the virtual reality use, but still important. And that leads us into our topic of the metaverse. For any of you who don't know, the metaverse is an emerging 3D-enabled digital space that uses both virtual reality and augmented reality, as well as other advanced internet technology to allow people to have lifelike personal and business experiences online. That's a lot of the real world replicated or digitized in a way. So in our survey, we're testing interest in use of the metaverse. We are definitely giving travelers the assumption, right? Assume the metaverse includes good spaces, actual quality content. How interested would you be in having experiences in the metaverse? And we're seeing about a third, 34% of American travelers say that they're interested or very interested in that type of experience. This is down just a couple percentage points from last year, but still relatively high. Interest is definitely highest in the younger generations. Nothing surprising there. Artificial intelligence might be the most overused set of words this year. Since January, I don't think I've heard another phrase in terms of technology that has been spoken more and about different things. We currently are testing in our survey awareness and use of AI chatbots, such as ChatGPT being one of those examples, but it is not the only one. Currently, 74% as of this month of American travelers say that they have heard of ChatGPT, so at least awareness is high. This was only 28% in February. So awareness and spread of ChatGPT as a thing and chatbots like them is absolutely on the upward growing trajectory. I put this analysis in here because I think it's really interesting to see that by generation, we don't see huge changes in terms of awareness, but by region we do. The Midwest is statistically falling behind in terms of just awareness from the other regions. But when we look at use, it's actually a different story. So even though 74% of American travelers say that they're aware of ChatGPT, only 27% actually have used it. And when we see use, we see that it's more by generation, that generational dichotomy that we expect, not really by region, which is an interesting difference from awareness. And then of those who've used it specifically for travel inspiration or travel planning, currently only 7.4%. I think we're going to continue to see this particular measurement be very low until ChatGPT can be right. I think there's too much concern about inaccuracies and bad advice for travelers to really trust it right now. So that's why I think we see the actual use for travel planning continue to be low. Again, the generational divide is where you expect it to be, the regional not so much. But even though the use is low, the interest in using ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence chatbots for travel is high. So even though only 7% have actually used it, 27% would be interested in a service like that. And I think that's really, really telling about kind of where the AI space is going to go into the future. Chris, did you want to jump in on generated via use cases?
Yes, so we've done a deep dive, David, into this whole space of generative AI. So on April 30th, we did a major webinar, and that included Focuswire, Microsoft. We looked at use cases in travel and tourism. There's a whole blog series. There's even a set of guides as to podcasts, videos, and other news sources that provide resources for keeping abreast of what is going to be a critical ongoing area that we predict is largely going to have a positive impact on travel and tourism, but there's certainly going to be some both opportunities and challenges, and obviously both opportunities and challenges in the wider society and political environment as well. So something certainly to keep an eye on. Now, our final area, David, in terms of having a look at online travel resources. Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight here that Google has launched some new features in their travel ecosystem. And I know you've got some research here in a moment that we'll have a look at Google versus DMO resources. But for those who haven't noticed, they presented and launched in recent months what they call their tickets and tours section. You can see that at the carousel at the top. And that provides both direct booking opportunities with about 40 plus different online booking providers. And that complements their top sites carousel you can see down below. And in recent months, they've also added pricing to this. So as some of the media and advertising options become increasingly sort of more challenged in terms of the outlook for online advertising, Google's actively looking for other ways to sort of clip the ticket or generate other revenue sources, and travel and tourism provides those opportunities. So I think we'll see more evolution in this space. So what did the research show in terms of the use of Google and the trust in Google versus DMO?
Yeah. So first on use, because we have to understand how American travelers currently report use of the technology. 22% say that they usually or always use Google curated destination content to plan their leisure trips. And just so it's clear, in the survey, we do actually show examples of what this means so that American travelers can answer knowledgeably about their use of the product. Trust, I think, is a different level of the conversation, though, because although about 1 in 5 of American travelers say that they've used this content, and we know, Chris, that largely if people are using the Google curated destination content, it means they're not making it further down and actually going to destination websites. So this absolutely impacts a lot of the work we do. Trust, I think, is how we get at that conversation, because 14% say they completely trust, not a huge amount. 60% say that they somewhat trust the Google curated content. 17% have little trust, and 7% do not trust at all. When we asked American leisure travelers to compare their trust of Google curated content compared to the local tourism office content, local visitor bureau tourism office, we see that 39%, so almost 40%, say that they trust the local tourism office more or much more than Google, and another 50% trust them both the same. So it's actually not inaccurate to say 90% of American travelers trust the local tourism office the same as or more than they trust Google. And that's a really important moment for us, because we have to control that content. We have to be the ones that tell our own stories. And that's definitely what the American traveling population is looking to in terms of trusted content. We also tested sources of business information outside of official DMO content against each other. So in terms of trust, Google Maps and Google Search business listings definitely trusted more than Apple Maps, TripAdvisor, Yelp, and Facebook in terms of the source for business information. We see the similar order here actually for trust in the user reviews. So reviews on Google or through Google business listings, more reliable than reviews in Apple Maps, even more than TripAdvisor and Yelp, which I thought was a really interesting note here, that Google still has that level of trust. And then on the specific new product that Chris just showed you in that video, the tickets and tours, use is not yet very high. Only 5% of American travelers said that they've used it a number of times. Another 8% have used it at least once. The majority of American travelers haven't used it or haven't noticed it yet. So definitely still some information that needs to be shared on that.
Very good, David, and thank you so much, mate. We're running tight for time, so I'm answering a couple of the questions in the Q&A. You caught me out answering one by Justin Bresler, who's joined us today amongst 450 others. So without further ado, we'll continue answering questions in the Q&A. Maybe we'll have a couple of minutes at the end, but let me pass over to Danelle Amos, our Director of Media, and Danelle's going to present 4 major technology changes that are impacting the paid media landscape. So over to you, Danelle.
Thanks, Chris. So, sorry, I can't get this slide to move. There we go. So the 4 digital media technology trends that we're going to be talking through are streaming TV, QR codes, streaming audio, and the cookieless world. So first, streaming TV. This is really what the current ecosystem looks like, and it continues to evolve. I'm sure most of you are familiar with at least 1 or 2 of these providers on here. And as we continue to move through this and have different platforms, again, this is moving so quickly that HBO Max has changed to Max since I even made this presentation. But really, the only provider on here that is not currently offering an ad-supported network is Apple TV. And so we really want to understand what consolidation of this ecosystem looks like and how we can actually engage with it. There are so many different options. It's hard to know. And I think one of the most important pieces to take into account is that the average time US adults spend per day with digital video and TV, it actually surpassed for the first time this year that people are spending more time with digital TV than with traditional TV. And so what does that mean from an advertising perspective? Consumers would rather save money than avoid ads, 64% of them. I think that's important to note because, traditional TV has always been seen as this big awareness, tactic that you're able to utilize and reach such a mass audience. And while that's still true, that really is starting to shift more into that digital element. I think the most difficult piece to know is how and who you should actually be running with. And I think that another way that you can see that people would rather save money is that Disney Plus and Netflix essentially went from 0 at the beginning of this year and have already, increased their subscriber list substantially. So as more streaming platforms move to ad-supported offerings, there will need to be consolidation. Otherwise, we will just be back in the same cable provider space where we're all spending hundreds of dollars a month just to be able to engage and watch TV. And I think just from an overall media plan perspective, 79% of Wi-Fi enabled homes are actually watching streaming content on CTV devices. So it's definitely some place that you should have some sort of presence if you have the dollars available. Secondly, moving into QR codes, to QR code or not, I think that the only place that and I'm sure some of you really engage with QR codes on a daily basis or weekly basis is at a restaurant when you're annoyingly trying to get the menu on your phone. And so, in 2022 Coinbase Super Bowl ad, they revived the QR code in advertising. So this is what the ad actually looked like over on the right-hand side. And over 20 million people visited Coinbase's landing page in a single minute. Coinbase jumped from 186th place to 2nd on the App Store. And it was the only commercial to prominently display a QR code. And due to that, the website traffic, the site actually crashed. And so I think that it is something that we should be moving more towards from an advertising perspective. The United States is actually pretty far behind a lot of the other countries. They utilize it in everyday life and it's very ingrained. And so what's a good way to use it? I think that, QR codes is a way to take really that high funnel tactic, which is TV, which traditionally has not had a way to generate or garner any website traffic. And it's a good way to start driving users to your website. A lot of CTV and OTT partners are starting to offer it in many different forms. Hulu has an interactive TV unit where you're able to scroll through and, showcasing different pieces throughout the destination, and you're able to have a different QR code on every slide. And so it drives users to engaging content. I think the main takeaway, though, is that you don't want to drive a user to a page through a QR code from some sort of TV or video ad, and they have a bad experience like the site crashing. So you really have to understand and have, quality content that you are driving them to in order for those to continue to be successful. And thirdly, moving into streaming audio, surround sound audio is everywhere. 96% of Americans ages 13 plus listen to some form of audio daily. They spend 3 hours per day spent with streaming audio, and 75% of that time is through an ad-supported network. And so I think really understanding how you can ingrain and implement this into your overall paid media strategy. Currently, only 2.5% of all digital ad spend capture streaming audio. And I think that a lot of times, no pun intended, streaming audio becomes background noise. And really, you're listening to it throughout your day when you're commuting in your car, when you're at work and you have your AirPods in, when you're working out. And so I think that as you start to think through how to engage with consumers, making sure that not only are they seeing your brand, but they're hearing your brand. There's so many different ways to showcase, especially a destination, through audio. And so figuring out how to ingrain that and, included in your overall plan. So nearly every American now listens to some form of streaming audio. So develop a strategy that leans into consumer listening habits. Brands should start to develop robust audio strategies. Partners like Pandora and iHeart and Spotify, they're all really starting to understand the importance of audio, and not necessarily just through that traditional radio piece, but they are starting to offer things like 3D audio that are more immersive and allow the consumer to engage with the brand more than just the audio piece, but also ensuring that there's a way to go to their website and really track all of those pieces. And last, but certainly not least, the cookieless future. This is something that we have been talking through, at least at Miles, for the past couple of years. And I think that we keep putting this off as something that is in the future and is coming, when really the cookieless future, it is happening right now. Safari and Firefox already blocked third-party cookies, and Google plans to eliminate third-party cookies for 1% of Chrome users in Q1 of 2024. And so how does that impact? What does that impact from a destination or a brand perspective? It really impacts audience targeting capabilities. So you're not able to target people as, thoroughly and as exactly as you are through behavioral and things like that, measurement and attribution and website traffic and performance. We've already seen a lot of this with our clients, and just seeing those overall metrics from a paid media perspective, as well as from a website standpoint when it comes to visitors to the site, just really starting to decrease. And so how do you start to prepare for that? You need to ensure that any measurement plan that's put into place accounts for continued deprecation of cookies. That's not just from a paid media standpoint, it's also going to be from a website standpoint. I think that making sure that you're getting in front of your stakeholders, board members, internal employees, and really making sure and understanding that they have a full understanding of how this impacts overall measurement and just overall success of the campaign. It's just going to look different, but making sure that everyone's on the same page before you jump into that meeting is extremely helpful. There are current solutions, but as you can imagine, none of them are foolproof or exact. I think that they also take a lot of technical abilities in order to be able to actually implement. So the 3 current solutions are data clean rooms, mixed media modeling, and server to server connections. Data clean rooms are probably the most utilized currently. They are they're essentially a clean room that allows a user ID to be separated from the cookie that then becomes a first party owned audience. And so it really allows you to still have that more exact targeting. And although it may be more expensive due to the, smaller reach and pool of people that you're able to actually reach, you're still able to reach people who are very engaged with your brand. And so just really starting to set your internal team up as well as your stakeholders for this impending cookieless future.
Yes, and the other thing I'd highlight there, Danelle, is of course with the migration to GA4, which is tied into the sort of cookieless future. That's another critical area in terms of the importance of being on top of what you need to be doing, both now and over the next 12 to 18 months. Just a couple of other resources we wanted to highlight. So we've already referenced vertical video and generative AI. So just to call out again to the webinar and related resources that we've got in both of these areas. So we ran on June 1st with Destination Analysts, a deep dive into vertical video, short format video, best practices, and that was focused on organic content, but had a number of sort of implications and issues for advertising types that are likely to be most engaging in this area. And Danelle, what's been our experience in this space of vertical video, short format video advertising?
Yeah, I think as many destinations are familiar, TikTok has not been as readily available and destinations are not able to use them as much as they would like from a paid media perspective, but there are other ways to include vertical video. I think that it's extremely important for all social channels, as well as online video strategies and just overall including it in your media mix, because more and more people are starting to really gravitate to these types of videos.
Yes, and you can see there, picking up what Danelle said about QR codes, you can access all those resources in the top right there. And we've already talked about the huge range of resources we're pulling together and have already shared around generative AI. And included in this, our colleague Gray Lowry had a great part of the webinar looking at a whole range of use cases in practice of generative AI applications and solutions in travel and tourism. And many of them are related to paid media, whether it's from planning or segmenting different audience types to generating copy, all the way through to image and video solutions that can do some amazing things. So we're just at the start of what's being described as the most transformational technology in human history. So certainly staying abreast of this and identifying practical areas to apply it into your business is going to be a critical skill set for all of us. So, and then just finally, before we return to any last questions, I wanted to highlight the next two quarterly editions of State of the American Traveller. We've got our Traveller Segments Edition on August the 29th, and the Destination Management and Sustainable Travel Edition on November 7th. And you can go online and register right now. So two critical topics that we'll be covering later this year. So thank you again to David and Danelle. David, did you want to join us again?
I am here, Chris. If there are any other questions, happy to dive into them.
Yes, I'm going to ask you each finally in the remaining couple of minutes to highlight one technology or one trend to keep an eye on over the next 6 to 12 months. So obviously there's so many things on the go here. We talked about everything from generative AI to virtual reality, augmented reality, obviously vertical and short video. What's a particular area of passion for you? First, David.
I mean, I hope I'm not stealing Danelle's answer because we did not practice this, but I'm going to go with vertical video on TikTok because there is no media channel, and I'm not even calling it a social network. There is no media channel that is more efficient at getting the content I'm interested in front of my eyes as quickly as TikTok can and has. I've even had great experiences using YouTube Shorts. I think all of the vertical video networks and channels are absolutely where we should keep our eyes, because it is like drinking from a fire hose, but in a really pleasurable way in terms of getting content. And yeah, as more and more travelers and more just consumers start adopting this as a format of how they get their information, we're going to see a big change in how people plan and where people travel.
Very good. And Danelle, did you have one particular trend or technology that you're keeping a particularly close eye on?
Yeah, I would say video just in general. So while vertical video is extremely important, it's funny because TikTok reached out and they are calling themselves an entertainment app versus like a social media app. So I think that goes well, David, into what you said. But I think just like video in general, I'm one of the people who has cable TV and then also subscribes to like every single streaming platform available because I don't want to miss a show. And so I think just consolidation of that and how they're going to actually be able to do that is just interesting, just to kind of see like where that all nets out and all the media opportunities that they have available.
Thank you. Thank you, Danelle. Thank you, David. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. We really appreciate you joining our quarterly edition. We look forward to coming back together with the Travelers Segments edition in late August. Have a great rest of your day and look forward to connecting soon.